So I'm going to get started as usual by opening up my website in Sublime Text to make some edits. I have Sublime Text already open, so I can drag the website folder onto the Sublime Text icon in my dock. But if you don't have it, you can open it. I have it kind of like stuck in my dock, but you can always open it using the Spotlight or the application finder thing. And so once you have Sublime Text open, you can just drag your website folder onto the text editor window, and that will open up your project in the folders panel. And remember, you need to have that open for Sublime to be able to create the local server. So I'm going to go ahead and start the local server. So I'm going to go to Tools, Sublime Server, and start Sublime Server. And then once the Sublime Server is started, I can go back to my browser and go to localhost:8080. And that will have my website. And so I can take a look at my website here and preview any changes that I want to make. And while I'm working on the website, I usually want to have my developer tools open. So I can open the developer tools by right-clicking and go to inspect. And so I can see my HTML here, and I can also see the CSS rules down here. And I can make changes to those to test out different things in the browser, but they're not permanent changes. I can also open the developer tools by going to View and Developer and going to any one of these really, but Inspect Elements is where we'll see our HTML. So I want to add a couple pages to the site that I already have. I got started with this story, and I'm creating this interactive story. So here's some text. It says, once upon a time there was a bird named Jerry. Jerry lived in, and then the user can choose either New York or California. And depending on which one we choose, we will go to a different page. And on these pages, I have a little back button to go back to the beginning. And so I need to add a couple more images to give the user more choices. So as we kind of talked about in a previous class, we're creating this branching narrative. And to create the branching narrative, we need a lot of different pages to go to. The actual assignment only requires 5 pages. So we're already up to like, well, we have 2 pages in our story. We have the index page and we have the about page. So if we count all of those, we're already at 4. So we really would only have like 1 page left. But in our story, we need at least a few different options. So I'm going to create a few more pages. And I'm going to map out my story a little bit. So I'm going to open up Photoshop and just do a little map of where I want my story to go. So I'll use a rectangle to represent a page, and I'll put a little text label on the rectangle, and so this will be the home page. And so I'll duplicate this. So I think I can do Command J and move that over here and do it again and move that down here. So this one is New York. That's the first option. And this one is California. And the way I have it set it up, each one of these has 2 options. So that means we have like 3 pages, and if each one of these has 2 options, that's 4 more pages. So that's already 7 pages. That's kind of a lot. So one way I could make it a little bit simpler is have these guys both have the same option. So since I'm telling a story, just to kind of simplify it, you guys should tell whatever story you're inspired to tell, but I'm going to reuse my pages a little bit so that I don't have to create lots and lots of pages. So I'm going to grab these and duplicate it again. And let's see. What I'll do, let's say Jerry the bird is going to, wherever he starts, if he starts in New York or California, we'll give him a couple of options. And then, well, actually, I guess I don't really know. It's going to be hard to, I was thinking maybe he would cross the country and end up at the one where he didn't start. But that would be kind of tricky because I'd have to know which one he did. Like if I made one that was like the middle of the country, like maybe this was like Kansas, he could go there. But actually that's a little more tricky than I probably want to do. So let's just make a few options. I'll make 3 options. And so I'll decide what those are in a second. And so I'll have, I keep accidentally adding text to this. So I'll have option 1 up here, option 2, and option 3. And so I'll have my paths go, let's draw some paths. So home has an option between New York and California. And then in New York, I'll have option 1 and option 2. And California will also have option 2 and then option 3. So that way I can reuse some of my content and not have to create lots and lots of pages. And that'll give me 5 total pages. Obviously, you can tell, you know, whatever version of the story you want to tell. So let's give Jerry some different options. So if Jerry's in New York, in the next part of the story, we can have him go to a park, or he can go to, well, let's see, what do California and New York have in common? Let's have the option be he could go to a park in either California or New York. In New York, he can go to a skyscraper, and in California, he can go to the ocean. I guess we have the ocean in New York. Let's go to the desert. Okay, so I have a few options for my story. And so let's get some images for these different options. And remember to save the licensing information for our About page. So I'm going to go to Google Images, and I'm going to start with a skyscraper. And I'm going to go to my tools and make sure to use the Creative Commons licenses. And so we have some cool skyscrapers. Let's find one. Oh, I guess these aren't necessarily in New York. Let's put New York in there. Okay, so this is a pretty good one. Good view of Manhattan. So let's go to this image. So this is Creative Commons 0, so I don't even have to give attribution for this, but I still want to save this. So before I even download this image, it gives me different download options. So we'll go with a smaller download size, but before I even download this, I'm just going to copy it and put it into my About page. So I'll go back to Sublime and go to my About page. And so here's where I have all of my references to the images that I'm using. So I already have my Times Square image, and I have my Hollywood sign image, and I'm using a list for these. So we can review creating a list. So I want to start with the name of this image. I'm not sure that it actually has a name. Oh yeah, I guess it has a description. some info here. I guess we can use this as the name, NYC. Oh, this is just like a bunch of tags. So I'll just call this New York skyline skyscraper. If it doesn't have a specific image, you can just, or name, you can just make one up. So just call this New York. So I'm going to start a new list item in this list. So I'm going to put an LI and then close it. And everything in my list is going to go inside of here. So I can go ahead and close that if I want to, and then write my content in the middle. So this is my New York skyline image. And it has the same Creative Commons license actually as this other one. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it there. And then I'll put a link to the source. So remember, if I want to create a link for anything, I'm going to create an anchor tag. So I'll start a new tag and choose A for anchor and then close it. And then I can go ahead and close that anchor tag as well. And if I want to put this on a new line to make it a little bit easier to read, I can do that. The HTML will ignore this new line here. So the text that goes inside of my anchor tag is just source. And then the link I put inside of the tag itself, in between the A and the bracket. So I'm going to make a space here. And we can see Sublime already is assuming that I want to put a hypertext reference, an href. So I'm going to hit enter. And that creates my hypertext reference. And then I'm just going to go back to Chrome and copy that image link and paste it in there. And then the other option, if I want to put another attribute here, I can go after this quotation mark and make a space. And you can see Sublime is also guessing that I want to put in a target. And since this is an external link, if I want to open it in a new tab, I can use the target and use blank. So actually Sublime is pretty good at guessing what I want to put in here. I don't know if that's a default Sublime thing or if that's the Emmet plugin that I downloaded for this. So if you don't see that, you might want to download Emmet as a package. But so now I have my info for this image. Let's go ahead and download it. So I'm going to go back to Chrome. And I'm going to choose a relatively small size because I don't really need a huge image here. So I'll go with 1024 and click download. And if I go to show in Finder, we can see there's the image there in my downloads folder. I'm just going to delete these images. The image name is super long, and so I don't really want to type all of that out when I put it into my project. So I'm just going to change this to skyline.jpg. And then I need that image to be actually inside of my website folder to be able to reference it. So I already have my website folder open over here in the Finder. So I can just make these windows a little bit smaller and then choose my images folder and drag this image over here. Okay, so now I just need two more images, the park and the desert. I'll go through this a little bit more quickly. So let's get a park. And for this one, we want something that could be kind of generic because we're not going to say the exact location of this park. So let's see. These are all New York parks. I think it's figured out that I am in New York. Let's see if we can find. This is a pretty generic looking park. It says it's in Seattle. So unless somebody's from Seattle, they probably won't recognize this. I'm going to go to this one. And I'll click on the image. And so here, this one is Creative Commons 3.0, which is share alike, which means that I can share or adapt. And I have to give attribution, so I'm going to do that on my About page. And I also have to give the same license. So this is a little bit of a more restrictive license where it's basically saying if I want to use this image, the work that I use it in has to have a share alike license. So I'm just gonna keep going with it to save time, but you might choose like I don't want to have a share alike license, so you might have to decide not to use that image in that case. But I'm just gonna go ahead with this one. So I'm gonna copy the name of the image and go back to my about page and add a new list item. And I'll put the name of the image in here, and then I'm gonna copy this Creative Commons. I just need the title of the Creative Commons license. If you want to link that to the actual license, you could do that, but people can look it up just by the title. And then I'll put a new anchor tag here for my source. And I'm going to use the href. So Sublime is really filling in most of this stuff for me. I don't really have to actually type that much. But let's go ahead and paste in our link and choose the target is _blank. So it'll open a new page. So I've got that all set up. Let's take a look at that actually, since we didn't look at the first one. So there's my third list item, New York skyline, and a link to that source. And here's the one I just added with a link there. And now let's go ahead and download this image. Let's see. How do I actually download it? Okay, let's go. So it doesn't have a download button, but I can just drag it into my project folder. So I'm going to go to the 1024 pixels. And so there's no download button here, so I can hit Command S to save the image. Or if I have my Finder open here, I can just drag this image. So I can drag the image, switch to the Finder. So I'm using my like little Command Tab thing to do this. So I'm going to drag the image, still dragging, switch to the Finder, and then just drop it in there. And again, I'm going to change the name of this image because it's kind of long. So I'm just going to call this park.jpg. Okay, one more image to go. This one is for the desert. And this one can be in California, so I'm going to put California in there. And we're going to do Creative Commons license. Oh, and desert with one S, not two S's. And let's see. That's pretty cool, this first image from Wikipedia. I'll just go with this one. So again, just quickly, I'm going to go back to my About page and add another list item here and close that list item, and then add the name of this image, and then this is Creative Commons 0, so I can copy that same Creative Commons license from up here. Or wait, no, this is 1.0. Oh, I think I just, oh no, it's Creative Commons 0 1.0, so that's the right thing. Okay, so I'm going to copy that, paste it here, and then add a link to the source. So I'm just putting this on a new line just to make it easier to read, but the HTML will actually ignore a new line if it's inside of a list item like this. So this is my source, and I need a href. And so let's grab this link here. And I want to choose the target again is _blank. And so let's see if that worked. Okay, there we go. So there's our 5th image source. And that goes to the image. So now let's go ahead and download it. So I'll go to more details. Oh, there is a download button up here to download every size. I don't want to download every size. Let's just go to 1024. And then this one, I'll just save this one. So another way I can do this, if I have the image actually open in the browser, and I can tell that because the very end of this URL is .jpg. So I know this is an image rather than a web page. So I can hit Command S and save if I don't want to drag and drop, and then just go to my desktop and find my website, go to images, and I'm just going to call this desert.jpg. Okay, so now I've got all my images. That's kind of the most time-intensive part. Now we can recreate our pages. So let's go back to the home page. So we're starting in New York, and in New York, Jerry's either going to decide to go to a park or a skyscraper. And so let's fill in those images and then create links on those. So for this one, I have this New York page, and it has everything that I need here. I'm very zoomed in, but if I zoom out a little bit, we can see the whole structure of this page. Basically, I have my head section, which is always pretty much the same thing. It just has the title, this char set attribute, and then a link to the style sheet. So I don't really need to worry about that. In the body section, I have the container for the whole website. I have the header section, which is always going to stay pretty much the same thing for these pages. All of these pages are inside of my pages folder, so I don't need to edit this at all. Here's the main section of my content. This is what I really need to focus on. And in this main section for New York, I kind of have this blank template that's based on my index page where I have an intro paragraph and then I have my two choices. And so my first choice is just a link with an image and a paragraph for the description. And my second choice is also a link, image, and a paragraph for the description. So they're pretty much the same thing, but they're going to link to two different places. So this is really the content that is going to change on my different pages. And since I haven't filled in this content yet, I want to go ahead and duplicate these pages to make it easier to fill in. If you've already filled this in, you can still duplicate the page and just change the content. But since I've already mapped out all of the choices that I have, it's easy. It's going to be easy for me to kind of, set this up as a template. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click. Oh, I can't duplicate from Sublime. So let's go to the Finder. So I can go to Reveal in Finder. And I'm just going to duplicate my New York page 3 times to make the other pages of my project. The California page is the same thing. I think I already duplicated that based on the template. So I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate. You may want to test it out because there are some things in here that may not work. For example, if I have the wrong link to my style sheet, like if this is just styles.css, but it's in the pages folder, the style sheet's not going to be added. So if you duplicate that, then you're going to have to, fix it however many times you duplicate it. What I really want here is .. because I have to leave the pages folder, go back to the main website folder, which is the .. part, and then grab the style sheet from this main folder. So I want to make sure that this folder is set up correctly, so my about page works, and my back page works, all of these things, and the style sheet works before I go ahead and duplicate it. If you do duplicate it and there's errors, it's not the end of the world. You can always change them. But we want to make sure it's as close to ready as possible. So anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and duplicate New York. So I can hit Command D on the Mac, or I can right-click and click Duplicate here. So my third page is just the park. And then they're all the same, so it doesn't really matter which one I change, which one I duplicate. So the next one is the skyscraper. And the last one is the desert. And so now I'm just going to fill in the content for the New York page. So let's see, let's go to Sublime and open up my page for New York. And so here's where I can set up my choices. So I don't really need to look at most of this stuff. I don't need the header or the head section. I just need this main content area. So for my first choice, this is going to go to skyscraper.html. So that's the link here. And you can also add more than one choices. I'm doing 2 choices per page, but you could have like 3 choices. You also don't necessarily have to link using an image. You could link using text. So you have different options for how it's set up. So for the image, I just want to go to my images folder. And this is one is a little bit more tricky because keep in mind our folder structure. So right now I'm in this pages folder, but I want to reference an image that's in my images folder. So to do that, I have to go from my page, I have to go back to my main folder, so that's .. and then I have to go into the images folder to get the image. So I have to be careful here. So first I have to go .. This takes me from pages to website. Then I go into images. So now I'm going from website to images. And now I put another slash for folder. And for this one, I actually called this skyline .jpg. And for the alt text, I'll just put New York skyline. And for my label here, for this image, so in New York, Jerry decided to fly to the top of a skyscraper. So that's just the first option. Okay, so if I want to see if that worked, I can go to Chrome and refresh my page. And there it is. This border is kind of ridiculous, so I'm going to just change that really quickly. I'm going to go to my style sheet, and let's just make the border a little less ridiculous. I don't know why I think I was just playing around with this. Let's just do 2 pixels, solid, and we can use gold as the, so that looks a little bit more sane. I guess it could be a little bit bigger. I did kind of like, oh, I used ridge before. Okay, let's just do a smaller ridge. Okay, that kind of looks good. Maybe we'll do 4 pixels. Okay, that looks pretty good. It's a little less crazy. Okay, so now he has the option to fly to the top of the skyscraper. And so let's fill in the second option. So I'm going to go back to Sublime, go to the New York.html. And so this one is the park. So this goes to park.html. And the image, again, I have to go back .. to my main folder, go into the images folder, and then I'm going to choose park.jpg. And the alt text is a park. And the choice paragraph here is fly to a tree in a park. Okay, so that's pretty easy. If I go back to Chrome, now I have my 2 options. The images are different sizes, so you could go into Photoshop and crop them if you want them to be the same height. But that doesn't really bother me, so I'm just going to stick with this. Okay, so now I have my New York options. Now we need to add my California options. So this is pretty much exactly the same thing. So I'm going to open up California, and I'm going to collapse the head section. I don't need to do that. I'm going to collapse the header section. That's going to stay the same. This intro paragraph is still good. We just have to fill in our choices here. So for California, the first choice is also the park, park.html. And I could just actually copy and paste this if I want to save time. I could go back to New York, copy this whole section of HTML, Command C, and then just delete this part here and Command V to paste. And so that will automatically fill it in. And then my next option is the desert. So this one goes to desert.html. And the image source is .. images / desert.jpg. And the alt text is a desert. And so Jerry is going to decide to fly into the desert. So now we have our California options. So let's go back to Chrome. So we go to California. So we can fly to a park, or we can fly into the desert. And so for these pages, these are kind of like the terminal or ending points of my story. So they don't go anywhere. And so for those pages, I don't need multiple images. Or you could put whatever you want here. Like you could just put some text. You could put an image. You could put the same image. These pages are kind of like the endings, the various different endings of the story. So you could also have like more branches that come off of this part. It's kind of up to you what you want to do with your story. I'm going to try to keep these kind of simple. So I have 3 pages. Let's close these to make these a little bit simpler. So I have desert, park, and skyscraper. And actually now I'm realizing I shouldn't have copied the same exact template, because if I don't have more choices here, I don't really need all this HTML. So I can just kind of get rid of this and just put a big image. So let's actually, so this one is skyscraper. So I'm gonna actually keep my New York.html open. Just to save a little bit of time, I'm gonna copy these images instead of rewriting them, because it's the same code. So for my skyscraper, let's put that one first. I'm gonna copy this image, and I'm gonna put it above this paragraph and just say, Jerry was very happy sitting on the top of a skyscraper. So that'll be the ending of the story. So then I actually don't need any choices. I'm just gonna delete this whole section. So that page is pretty simple. So let's go back. And so this is in New York. If I go to a skyscraper, so that's the ending of the story. And we can go back and start over. So actually this one is a better template. So if you find that you change the basic idea, I can just go ahead and use this as a template. So I can either delete these files or I can overwrite them or whatever. I'm just gonna go ahead and delete them. And then just duplicate skyscraper a couple times. And so now I'll have park and desert. And so that'll save me a little bit of time. I don't have to like cut and paste a lot of code. I have basically the exact same template. So let's collapse this header. So I just have an image and then a paragraph. So for the park, the image is just park.jpg. And for the ending of the story, I can just change the ending of the text. Jerry is very happy hanging out in a tree. So again, my story is kind of silly. So you might have a more complicated ending. So you may have to figure out what's the path, how many different paths are there to the endings, how many different endings are there. It doesn't have to look exactly like this. Let's do one more, the desert. I'm gonna collapse this header, change this to desert.jpg, and then we'll have one sad ending. Jerry was too dry in the desert. So it's not always a happy ending. And so let's check it out. So let's go back to we're on the home page. So if we go to New York, have the skyscraper. Or if we go to California, we can go to the park. Or if we go to California, we can go to the desert. Okay. So now that we've got our story kind of wrapped up, we've got our about page with all of the citations we need. We're pretty much ready to go. You can make changes to the style if you want. You can update your CSS page, whatever you want to do. Once you're ready to make the changes, we need to upload it to GitHub. So we already uploaded our projects to GitHub on Tuesday. And so we went over that process. And this is pretty much exactly the same thing. And the cool thing that we're going to see about GitHub is how it actually tracks the changes that we make. So I'm going to go to a new tab in my browser. I'm going to go to github.com. And I'm already signed in. If you're not signed in, obviously you need to sign in. And so then I'll go to my repositories. And usually you'll see the thing that you've been working on the most recently as your first repository. So this is my website, Spring 22. So I'm going to click on here. And so here's the stuff that I uploaded the other day. You can see that I made these commits 2 days ago. I started by uploading my main files, and then I added my images and pages. And so now I need to update the rest of my pages. So I'm going to go to Add File, Upload Files. And remember, this is the part that you have to make sure to do correctly. I can't just drag my whole website here, because what that does is it makes a website folder inside of my main website. What I want is for my GitHub, which looks like this, to match the inside of my website folder. So the website folder is the same as the main part of the repo. So again, the way that I do that is I go to upload files, and I have to drag and drop because it won't let me do the folders. So I just grab all of these files and I drag them onto here. And the cool thing about GitHub, once it processes all of these different files, and you can see all the files here, and I'm gonna go to commit changes. I'm gonna say adds the end of the story and click commit changes. It's gonna process my files, and it's gonna take a second. Just like on Tuesday it took a second before the website was actually published, it's gonna take a second before you see your website actually change. But the cool thing is, if we look at our commits now, you can see there's 3 different commits. And if I look at this commit that I just made, it didn't just overwrite my files, it actually looks at the difference between the files that I added. So here's my about page. You can see the green part is new content. So it didn't just overwrite the whole file, it actually read through the file and it said, okay, this is the same, this is the same, this is different. So the commit is actually just these pages, these lines of code that were different. We can see this is just a new image. This is a new image. Here's my California page. We can actually see the red part is parts that are not in the file anymore, and the green part is parts that are still in the file. And so this may not really seem that interesting at this point, but when you're collaborating with people, this is really, really useful, because you can see who made what different changes. And so if somebody adds new code, you can look at their code and see what they changed. So that's really useful in a professional or even hobby development environment where people are working on a big project together. All right, so it's probably been long enough, so I can go to my web page. So if you can't remember the URL, you can always go to settings and go to pages, and you'll see the URL here. But you can also create the URL just by taking your username.github.io and then the folder name of your repo. So for me, that's owenbmcc.github.io/website-spring-22. And it looks like it's updated. So if I go to New York, I can see my options, and there's the end of that story. So everything's working. If you make an upload and it's been like a minute or so and it doesn't look different, if you're in Chrome, what you should do is do Command-Shift-R. That's a hard reset, so it flushes out the cache. Your browser will cache a lot of the information on the website to make it faster to load. Caching is just like saving the images and stuff on a hidden folder in your computer. So if you don't see the changes immediately, try Command-Shift-R. If that doesn't work, then you may have forgotten to add a file or something like that. So yeah, that's the basic idea. Once you are ready, you can put this on Discord. So before we leave today, we'll stop for a minute and just post our websites on Discord so we can take a look at them. So you can just grab the URL from the browser bar and then go over to Discord and just put it into the MMP 100 channel. And so that way we can take a look at what you guys have got so far. And we can see, if we need more. Right now the assignment is due on Monday, and I think hopefully that is doable for people, but if we need more time, we can take more time. So let me know what you guys think. So I'm going to